The notification tone was a little triumphant chime I had learned to love. It meant money, momentum, another metric turned green. That morning it felt like a judge clearing its throat. I unlocked my phone, eyes still half torn from sleep, and read the subject. Lab results. Please review. I opened the attachment with a casual flick. 3 words rearranged my world. Malignant cells detected. For a creator whose face opened wallets and whose mornings were monetized, the diagnosis landed like a silence that no sponsor could fill. My studio light, the soft ring that made 10 million viewers feel like friends, suddenly illuminated a hospital-colored truth. The guitars on the wall, the collection of token art behind my desk, the slick spreadsheet of assets that my financial advisor loved to show on calls, all of it felt, in an instant, like a stage set. I had written the boom, short-form channels, subscription tiers, NFT drops, angel checks. My net worth read like a story investors like to tell. Property holdings, digital royalties, recurring revenue. People called me the creator millionaire. But there's a precariousness to wealth when it's mostly valuation and velocity, when liquidity is assumed and time is not. The lab's PDF didn't care about branding. It showed treatments, possible protocols, and a list of out-of-pocket costs that read like items on a marketplace: personalized immunotherapy, off-label drugs, international consultations, clinical trial travel. My advisor sent a spreadsheet at 2 a.m., burn rate scenarios, assets to liquidate, tax consequences, and a recommendation to prioritize liquidity for immediate care. The numbers were calm and ruthless, a kind of arithmetic that doesn't comfort. I sold without ceremony. The leather watch from my first 6-figure month left my wrist. I authorized token liquidations at volatile prices. I signed the closing on a small rental property while IVs dripped in my arm. Transfers executed, confirmations pinged. My assistant handled the logistics of fundraising streams while I learned the new math of treatment windows and scan dates. Followers sent prayers and small donations. Friends organized benefit streams. The community helped, yet the accounts thinned, and with them, a familiar kind of assurance. There was shame in the speed of my sell-off. People asked bluntly, "Why didn't you have better coverage? Why wasn't your portfolio more liquid?" Those questions stung. They forced conversations I had avoided about privilege, risk, and the illusion of control. I learned to answer with honesty. I had planned for growth, not catastrophe. I'd optimized for scale, not sudden medical cost. That admission felt like a confession and a liberation. Under fluorescent lights, away from ring lights and tailored scripts, I discovered a currency that had no ticker symbol: presence. In chemo suites that smelled of antiseptic and hope, I held hands with people I'd never met who wept for me as if I were family. I received voice notes from viewers saying my content helped them through lonely hospital nights. A pastor who once prayed quietly at the edge of a meetup called and read scripture over a shaky connection. Those gestures were not convertible, but they sustained me in ways my bank never had. Proverbs kept whispering in the hard hours. "Whoever trusts in his riches will fall," the word said bluntly. I had built systems and charts that suggested permanence, but the diagnosis exposed a deeper ledger. Wealth without wisdom becomes a brittle thing. Stewardship, the Proverbs teachers insist, is not merely accumulating, it is knowing when to spend, when to shelter, and when to give. I spent to live. I spent to be healed. Each payment felt like both necessity and sacrament. I confess, some transactions felt like bargaining with God. If I remove this token, will the scans return clean? If I sell that property, will the tumor shrink? Those thoughts are human and raw. In the quiet, I learned prayer that was not a checklist, but a holding. I learned to say, "Lord, do what you will," and mean it. There were losses that stung beyond dollars. The freedom to travel without thinking about expense, the pride that came when my balance sheet matched my identity. But there was also unexpected gain. Humility. I called my parents more. I forgave old business partners. I sat with a friend and listened to her story without trying to turn it into content. Marriage and friendship found new depth when the account emptied and the heart widened. When I finally spoke publicly, I did it without the polish I used to demand. I mapped the symptoms, read the email, showed the spreadsheets, named the therapies. Analytics dipped briefly. Then comments poured in with testimonies. People who had seen a doctor because my vulnerability nudged them. A viewer who reconciled with his estranged son after seeing me reconcile publicly. Sponsors retooled. Brands who wanted to sell a lifestyle stepped back. Institutions offering screenings, patient support, and health literacy stepped forward. My platform shifted from promotion to provision. Financially, the aftermath was real. I had liquidated collections and properties. I had zeroed certain accounts by necessity. But the proverbs I clung to also taught practical wisdom. The prudent see danger and take refuge. I rebuilt with a new theology of reserves. Emergency funds became sacred. Insurance policies were reviewed with the seriousness of covenant. We set up a medical contingency trust, streamlined living expenses, and created recurring microdonations that could be activated for future emergencies. I taught my audience how to read an insurance explanation of benefits, how to set up durable power of attorney, why liquidity is not greed but prudence. Spiritually, the loss matured me. Where before I had measured worth in followers, I learned to measure it in faithfulness. Where once I optimized for reach, I began to optimize for mercy. The content pivot resolved. From flashy drops to honest conversations about health, stewardship, and community. New partnerships arose. Clinics offering free screenings, philanthropists funding patient scholarships, creators collaborating on educational series. The revenue returned slowly and differently. It arrived coupled with purpose. If you are listening and you measure life by columns and graphs, hear this: an email can break your plan. It might empty your accounts or shutter a business, but it can also unmask what truly sustains. The Proverbs are not anti-wealth, they are anti-worship of wealth. They teach us to store wisdom as relentlessly as we store cash, to prioritize people as we prioritize portfolios, and to be ready to spend our best when mercy asks. When my final scan read no evidence of disease, I wept. Not for the return of green numbers, but for the grace that cost me everything else. I had been stripped of objects that once dressed my identity, and in the stripping I found a sturdier heart. I lost my fortune, and in the losing, learned to be rich in what endures. If this story touched you, subscribe and stay with us. We bring Proverbs into the marketplace of modern life, practical wisdom for money and mercy. If you felt this, leave a blue heart in the comments, a quiet marker that you choose faith over fear, people over portfolios. You just spent 8 minutes for God, 8 minutes to grow in wisdom, faith, and peace. See you tomorrow. Verse for your meditation. Proverbs 11:28. Whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will thrive like a green leaf.